All right. Welcome, everybody. It is, what is today? January 19th, 2024. And I'm really excited about today's webinar. I've stressed my guests to the max because I basically called them last night and said, you're on a webinar with me today. And this all stems from a conversation that I basically had on an airplane with Chief Coyle last week after coming back from the NAMSP, which was a fantastic conference. The Florida NAMSP chapter was incredible. We had quite a number of people, and I challenged everybody by saying that you really need to know your CARES data. Then I realized that, well, maybe there are a lot of people who maybe don't know how to get to it or that type of thing. Let me just admit these people. Okay. So today what we're going to do is we're going to give you the kind of the outline about what to do, how to get your data. And actually, we're going to give you some ideas about what we think you should do and how you should look at your data, which version of the data you should look at. So, oh, sorry. Okay. So let's just get here for the goal. So by the end of today, you should, one thing, know your agency's cardiac arrest survival, not the overall survival. I want you to know your CPC 1 and 2 survival. Have ideas and next steps on next steps and conversations. So you're not going to solve the world today, but you're going to have a lot of ideas of what to do next. And then you should have Debo, Chief Moran, and Chief Coyle on speed dial. Because if you want to fix cardiac arrest at your location, and there's other people on this call who could help, but I'm going to really pinpoint on these guys here because they've really done a lot of work, and you'll see why. But before we get started, I'm going to give a little bit of a preamble, and I'm going to bring in Chief DiBernardo. And I see here there's still people trying to come in for some reason. So real quick on how we got here. We started in 2016, and it really all started because our current fire chief, Chief Downey, who's really, oh, this thing is going on its own. Shoot. Our incredible fire chief, Chief Downey, really challenged us several years ago, and he said to Chief Gonzalez, "Hey, what's going to be your project? What are you going to do to make things better?" And this thing is going again by itself. Sorry, it must be on auto thing, but and so essentially in 2016, Chief Gonzalez and Chief Moran went to Seattle, went to the Resusc Academy in Seattle, and they came back, you know, really excited about what to do next. And what I didn't know back then, and which is a very touching story, and I know Chief Gonzalez is on the call today, is that Chief Gonzalez's father passed away from cardiac arrest when he was a young man. So Chief Gonzalez was only 18 when his father passed away, and he saw the medics come into his house. I mean, he tells the story better than I can, but really, this is something that Chief Gonzalez is doing in his father's honor. All the survivors that come out of Davie and come out of the rest of Florida, maybe even the country, he's really had a big hand in this. So before we go to Chief DiBernardo, Chief Gonzalez, are you there? And would you mind saying a couple of words? Is Chief on? Maybe I don't see him. Dan, is Chief Gonzalez on?
I'm not
I
sure
just
if he
spoke to him.
is,
Okay.
but I'll tell you, it's a touching story. We've heard it at every event that we've had, and basically he witnessed his father go into sudden cardiac arrest, and he witnessed EMS arriving and working to save his life. And we honor his memory every training that we do. So it's a special part of our history.
It is. Thank you so much, Dan. And so then we said we need someone special who can really take this bull by the horns and actually make it happen. And there happened to be a fire chief from Sunrise who's a data guru. He's a brilliant man, and he just couldn't stay out of retirement. So in comes Chief Tom DiBernardo. Chief, please come on in and tell us, how did you get involved in all this, and tell us where you are now at the state level.
Good morning, everyone. Thomas DiBernardo, Florida Department of Health, your Florida CARES coordinator. Well, it was exactly that. I was retired, and we all tried to get into the cardiac arrest registry in the state of Florida for years. And it was around 2015, we had some pilot agencies join the registry. And in 2017, the state committed to full-time employee to push out the registry. And I was given a 5-year goal to get 20 agencies and 50 hospitals. And this June will be 5 years, and we have 59 agencies and 246 hospitals. And we thought we'd be at 500 cases a month, and we're at basically 1,100 cases a month now. So we're far exceeded our 5-year goal already. I don't know if that was terms for me to retire again yet. So I made my new retirement goal at CPC score of 15 to 17% baseline Florida before I'm allowed to retire.
Now that would be amazing. I want to take you to Morton's if that happens. So Chief has been just an incredible powerhouse, let's just put it that way, in getting Florida to where it is today. Thanks to the state, everyone at the state, including Dr. Sheppy, Steve McCoy, and many others who actually made this a priority. Even Joe Nelson beforehand, who initiated this. But there's many people involved, so we're very happy where we are today. So let's keep moving on because we have a lot to talk about. I really want to give everyone just a quick breakdown of the numbers. So if you have a population in your city or your town of 100,000 people, this is how the number is going to break down. Ready? So you should expect about 100 total cardiac arrests. So again, whatever your population, if it's 300,000, then 300, 400,000, 400, etc. Of the total arrests that you'll get called out for, or that you'll have, you'll typically work half of those. So Davie, town of Davie has a little over 100,000. Let's say 110,000. So, we should be seeing about 55 arrests, about 110 arrests and work 55 of those. And that's kind of where we are. Of the workable arrests, the state of Florida, I should say that nationally this past year, 2023, the CPC 1 and 2 survival, not overall survival, was 6.3%. So when you do the math on that one, a town like Davie should have 3 neuro-intact survivors, not a lot. However, what if I told you that with a little bit of work, you can get to 14%, and that's what Tom just mentioned, then you could have 7 people come out, right? So 3 to 7 doesn't seem like a lot, but like we talk about in our Resuscitate Florida, events, if you had 25 years in your service and let's see only 6 saves a year, that's 150 lives. And that's basically an Airbus A320. That's your Sully, right? So over your career, and by the way, the arbitrage there was 75 additional people, because if it was only 3, it's 75. But if it's 6, it's 150. Just think of how many families, how many weddings, how many birthdays you've made a difference on. So the numbers aren't that big if you're a small town or a small city, but they do definitely add up. So this is 2022 data. Look all the way to the right. And by the way, these are the states that are in CARES. There's still some that are not. Look all the way to the right. This is 2022 data. As of today, 2023, the numbers, Tom, are we at what, 6.3% for CPC 1 and 2 for national?
That's correct.
Right, and that's going to increase as these kind of December cases get pushed in, and we get the outcomes for those cases. So we're more than likely going to end up at like 7%, where we always end up. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so basically, did the patient get discharged neurologically normal? In my opinion, that's the only number you should be looking at, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. We're going to keep moving on. So I've asked Chief Moran here in a minute to go over the CARES modules. There's data that goes in. It's very important that you know what data goes in, you know how it goes in, you know who does it at your agency. And there are some issues with some of the data elements in our opinion, but we're going to go through these in a little bit. I'll start with the dispatch. I'll pass it over to Dan for EMS, and then we'll talk about the hospital. So dispatch has 5 data points that they can put into CARES. Here is the cutout of how it looks like. Was the call transferred to them? And by the way, Tom, if I'm making any mistakes, please just pop in. Did they transfer the call? If yes, the time elapsed before the dispatcher first addressed the caller. But these are the three most important times. When did they recognize cardiac arrest? When did they give first instruction? And when did they time to first compression? There's really only two ways of you getting this information: listening to the call yourself, or getting the case sequence if you have MPDS. So you can ask them for the case sequence, and it's basically a PDF of this information. But at the end of the day, someone's got to go in and answer these questions manually. This doesn't just get populated on its own. Chief DiBernardo, did I miss anything there? Is that true?
That is true.
Okay. If you do not do this, you will not know how you're doing with telephone CPR. Here's the problem. When you go to dispatch and say, hey, I just heard this webinar, and they want you to put in every time for every cardiac arrest, they're going to go right away. They're going to say, we don't have enough people to do that. So you're going to have to make a decision at your own agency whether you input this information on your own. And if you do, then you'll get the data. I'm going to warn you right now. You better be prepared for what you're about to hear once you start listening. This is an email I received from years ago where one of my chiefs emailed me and said, what's going on here? And it's because you start to see things like this. The first time CPR has begun was 6 minutes, 18 seconds after the call. That no longer happens thanks to people like Jim Roach, Chief Clark, Chief DiBernardo, Chief Moran, and many others who have, it's really Chief Dr. Roach from BSO, who's really helped us fix dispatch, Chief Coyle up in Palm Beach County, and many others. So you have to fix dispatch for that to happen and collect the data. Then you can get your own dispatcher cares report. So if those 5 data elements get put in, you will now have insight into, are you getting hands on chest within 90 seconds or 2 minutes? And that's really the goal. Okay, I'm going to push this over to Chief Moran because he's really an expert on this part. If you're in EMS and you have an EPCR, your medics are putting in data points. 37 of those are required, and you'll see those in a minute. And then there's 19 that are supplemental. Those will all be highlighted in yellow. So Chief Moran, if you wouldn't mind taking us through, I'll actually skip this one. This is just the demographics one. This is kind of the basic one. But let me start us with part C, starting at question 18, and talk us through these elements.
Absolutely. So one point to make too is if you're a higher volume agency with cardiac arrest, I think there is an automatic import process where a lot of this information will be populated. Davie Fire Rescue unfortunately doesn't see enough of the cardiac arrest cases to meet that threshold. So we manually enter every cardiac arrest we go to. The EMS division will tell our medics in the field that we will spend just about as much time looking at the cardiac arrest case, entering this data as they work the code, just so we're on the same page for we're all working together for the same mission of increasing survival. So part C is the arrest information. So this is good information to know as far as the location type. So you're aware of where these cardiac arrests are occurring. We look at if it was witnessed or unwitnessed and by who. We looked at what the cardiac arrest etiology is, and there is a CARES definition for this. So I think it's an important point of education that when you are talking to the medics in the field that are entering this data, that they clearly understand what the etiology is and what the patient would present with for each of these types, just so we get the accurate data of what actually caused the arrest to occur.
So Chief, I'm just going to stop you right there. So in CARES, if it was an overdose arrest, then that will not go into the presumed cardiac bucket. So when you run your report and you say, only show me presumed cardiac cases, you have to click that button for it to only show you that. If not, if you say non-traumatic arrest, you'll end up seeing all of these cases in that bucket. Just to clarify that. That's why it's important to pick the right one.
Perfect.
Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. Then we go into the resuscitation information. So we begin with if a 911 responder performed the resuscitation and if an AED was utilized prior to arrival, who initiated the CPR. And then we get into the bystander CPR questions. And again, this is important data. One, the telecommunicators, I think, have a very challenging job. I have the utmost respect for them, especially after hearing the audio intake that they have to deal with and try and control the scene prior to our arrival. But we really do want to know if TCPR was performed. And part of that reason is we want to recognize the dispatcher that was involved with that case if we have a survivor. So it's important to get that information. And I don't think a lot of EMS providers know that that's important information to get. So a lot of times we'll see unknown until education can be performed of why this is important. So was compressions performed prior to arrival, and did dispatch prompt that to occur? Then we go into if an AED was applied. So again, this is important for grant funding. It's important for recognizing the problem and getting a solution for it, such as giving PD AEDs, communities having access to AEDs, public locations, et cetera. Then we go to who actually applied that first AED, and then who defibrillated if the patient was in a shockable rhythm, who actually performed that first defibrillation. And then for us, 28 pretty much is always going to match, 21. But yes, 911 responder performs CPR.
So, Chief, how do you prevent the pencil whipping here? Because a lot of times, the engine's on that scene first, the rescue comes later. They have no idea. How do you prevent that?
It really comes down to the education part. So when you're doing the education awareness for the high performance CPR, for teaching the best practices for cardiac arrest response, I think teaching what CARES is and the value that it brings for the measure and improve mantra is very important. We have to have real data being entered that's correct so that we can really monitor our system and see if there's areas for improvement.
And that's why everyone listening to this call today should be taking your medics through these questions and actually explain to them some of the nuances of answering these questions correctly. So thank you, Dan. So Dan, if you want to take us through the next set of questions.
Absolutely. So then we go to the actual detailed arrest information. So starting with what was the presenting rhythm, and then if we had ROSC occur, and for when did that occur? So how long, and if it was during the transfer to the ER, if it was during your transport time. I think this is another important point to make about the value of working the patient on scene. Our goal is at least 20 minutes of cardiac arrest treatment in the house before we package and transport the patient. We look at if hypothermia care was provided, what the end of event was, and then again, when did that ROSC first occur, and what treatment was done that led to it. The next parts that are all highlighted are all your times. And I will tell you again, education is an important part of it because a lot of these are going to be estimates. So it's very important that we just go over, how the crew should be getting that information to estimate properly. When did the arrest occur? So you look at when did the PSAP center receive that 911 call, and then kind of how long the arrest occurred before then, which obviously is important if it was witnessed versus unwitnessed. Then we look at that time to first CPR, which hopefully was occurring already, but if not, hopefully with TCPR, if not, hopefully with PD, and then eventually fire rescue. When was that first defibrillatory shock performed? Again, when did ROSC occur? So these are all just your basic times for our treatments and evaluation of the patient.
I do want to mention that number 30, look at number 30, because it says sustained ROSC, 20 consecutive minutes. That number will show up in your CARES report. We'll show you that later. But my question to you, Chief Moran, and also to Chief DiBernardo is, what if we get ROSC right in the ambulance bay 2 minutes before we get to the hospital, and our medics don't click the box? Shouldn't they just be clicking the box if they got ROSC as yes?
Yeah, we treat the two as the same, and they'll print out in your report the same, especially in urban areas where 20 minutes, that's not even real. They'll be at the hospital in 10. So the way I teach this is where it says ED arrival. When you're backing up to the ED, do you have it or do you not have it? That's the bottom line. When you're backing up to the hospital, did you stop CPR because you had ROSC, or are you still pumping on the chest? So then you put no. If you're stopped because of ROSC, then click the yes.
Okay, very, very important for you to know that, because some people may say, oh, it wasn't 20 minutes, and they give you a no when they really had a yes, and then your numbers are all upside down. Okay.
The common question is the intermittent ROSC, right? Had it, lost it, had it, lost it, had it. So I just say, when you were backing up to the ED, were you pumping on the chest or not?
Perfect. Okay, that's great insight. All right, let's keep moving on. So now, part D, there are several ones that are not required. All the ones that have been highlighted thus far are not. But Chief Moran, you want to continue real quick through these non-required ones?
Absolutely. So mechanical CPR, did we apply a mechanical device? And if it was, what device was used. Again, good information for statistics and comparing one device to another. Again, we always stress the importance of just how that device was used, not necessarily which one was applied. So how quick did that transition occur? Did we interrupt compressions at all? My department currently uses the auto pulse, but again, it could be the Lucas, it could be another type of mechanical piston device, whatever you have, just how was it applied? If automatic CPR feedback was used, again, great option, strongly encouraged. My department does not have that ability yet. However, we hope to in the very near future. Advanced airway, what device was used? I would really wish carriers would add the iGel to one of these options, which is our preferred supraglottic device, but unfortunately it's not on that list yet. So every time we enter it, I click other and we manually type in iGel. If an ITD was used, again, we're gonna click yes, and then how it was applied, and then what medications were administered to the cardiac arrest patient, as well as vascular access, IVIO, none. And again, I do wish that we would also add where the IO was placed, because I think there's value in studying the location for that IO. And then if a 12 lead was performed, and then STEMI, if a 12 lead was done, and if that was found.
And Doc, we do encourage, these are supplemental, but we do encourage, if any, because you can get a lot of this information from your system, your PCR rather than CARES, but we do encourage you to fill out 45 and 46, because we are training the hospitals, we're prompting the hospitals that if a 12 lead was done and they had a STEMI post ROSC, then we want them to fill out, did they go to the cath lab or did they get bypassed? And the hospitals are complying with that. So we do encourage 45 and 46. And I could even set those as mandatory for each agency if they wish, that they have to be filled out, but I have to leave it up to the agency.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. So that's actually didn't know you can do that. So thank you for that. All right, so I'm gonna kind of go through this report later. So this is the most important report we're gonna talk about in a minute. But now let's just really quickly run through the hospital. There's 5 required data points, 8 supplemental. It'd be nice if they filled out all those 8 supplemental, and you'll see why in a minute. But the 5 ones that we're talking about that they have to fill out, 47 through 51. So the ER outcome, hypothermia or TTM. What was the hospital outcome? Where were they discharged to? And here you go. What was their neuro intact survival? So if it's a CPC 1 or 2, that's what we're looking for. That will be in your report, and I'll show you where that is. Chief DiBernardo, what do you say about 52 to 59? These are very important ones. Is there a way to make these required, especially because we want to know what's happening to our STEMI patients?
We can make it required, but that's why I try to push if they do 45 and 46, and then that brings the hospital to want to do 54 through 58, which takes them all the way through. Were they confirming a STEMI? Did they go for a cath, or did they go to a cabbage? That's why we're trying to push agencies to do 45 and 46 at a minimum. When I see that the agencies are doing that, when I train their hospitals, I have them do 54 through 58.
Right. So, but as an EMS medical director, how do I know if that hospital has done that, if it's not required? And
you can do a hospital benchmark report and say include supplemental. If you run a hospital benchmark report and say include the supplemental, you will get the stratification of everything that's yellow on the page.
Okay, I'm calling you after this webinar. I need to know how to do that. Okay. So, okay, I'm learning as we go here. Thank you. All right, we're going to keep on moving on. So you can get a hospital quarterly report. So dispatch report, EMS report, hospital report. So you could get a report as an EMS medical director on the hospital that you're transferring these patients to. And now you can compare apples to apples. We don't have a lot of time today, but there's something coming down the pipe now. Dr. Batista, Chief DiBernardo, Ken Chepke are working on research centers for the state where this is going to matter even more. Okay, now I'm gonna take a little bit of a dive here. So there's 2 types of CARES reports. On the left-hand side are the CARES reports that you have access to. Now you can't see them so well because I don't think that this is the best view of the world, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But what happens is when you have your own CARES username and password, and you say, Davie Fire Rescue, you will get these 3 PDFs. It's a witness bystander page, an unwitnessed page, and a witness. And then you got to go through all the flow diagrams. You have to sit there and you have to think through it. And my brain doesn't work that well that way. Up in the top right corner, they do give you some data. Here's what that data looks like. They'll give you overall survival. They'll give you a survival of the bystander witness cases. They'll give you the unwitnessed survival. And then they'll give you Utstein. Now, Utstein, remember, is the patient was witnessed arrest and had a shockable rhythm. Utstein bystander means that they were witness arrest and had a shockable rhythm and they got bystander CPR. So this kind of separates out for you just the shockables and the survival, the witness shockables. Okay, that's very important to understand. So what is Utstein? And when someone says, "Hey, what's your Utstein?" It means what your witness shockable survival. But that's overall survival. That's still not CPC 1 or 2. So nowhere on the data that you're going to get does it have your CPC 1 and 2. So that's why, for me personally, this is a problem, because the only measure I think we should be looking at, in my opinion, and people can think I'm wrong, is your neurointact survival. So where's the money? The money's in the spreadsheet. Okay, that's where the money's at. So you only get that spreadsheet if you call Tom DiBernardo, or you call me. So we both have access to it. You need to see your spreadsheet, period, end of story. It's 1 page. So here we go. Here's the money shot, okay? So this is at the bottom of that spreadsheet. You could see here the first arrest rhythm, and on the right-hand side, sorry, this slide's not that good, is state of Florida. In the middle is the county, so this is Broward County, and the left-hand side is your agency, Davie Fire in this particular case. Notice that we had double the amount of VTAC, VFib, VTAC patients. Interesting, okay? And we actually reviewed the data we did. Asystole PEA, you can see that looks like we had less PEA. When you go down, sustained ROS, that's question number 30. So if you clicked on yes, that's the number here, and you can see National 26, Broward 27, Davie 34. So you say, okay, we did good there. Now, when you go down, here's where you look. Overall survival. This is the area you need to look. Did they survive to admission? So they had ROS, nice. They got upstairs to the ICU. 21% national, 23% Broward. Sorry, 23% Florida. I keep screwing that up. 35% Davie. Nice. And then overall survival to hospital discharge, meaning they left the hospital, CPC 1, 2, 3, 4. 8.2% national, 10% Florida, 21% Davie. But then here it is. This is the one line that you need to look at. CPC 1 or 2. That's what that means right here. 6.4% national, 6.3% Florida, 12.5%. Now this number is off by 1 because we have a 9th patient hasn't been collected yet for some reason. So our percentage is 14%. Then you look at Utstein, witness shockable or witness shockable bystander. And you can see the national, you see Florida in the middle, and you see Davie on the left-hand side. So the bottom 3 numbers, the 12, the 50, and the 50, those numbers are not really visible anywhere else. Actually, this number is not visible, only on this spreadsheet. Tom, any comments you want to make on this particular spreadsheet? Did I say anything wrong?
I would like to bring up 3 things on this spreadsheet, if I could, real fast.
Sure.
I'm trying to bring to Florida's attention under pre-hospital outcomes pronounced in the field. Because we're doing all these resuscitation efforts, our pronounced in the field is very low. So a lot of medical directors are reevaluating their death in the field. If you notice the country, they'll give an effort, but then they stop in the field 42% of the time. Where everybody that goes through our training, Dr. Shepke's line, right? They go by cemeteries and pull people up. They give an effort because, they got all this motivation in them. But our death in the field in Florida is 19%. In this particular agency, they're at 4.7. So look at the inverse of pronouncing the dead. The numbers just flip-flop. That's all they do. So in other words, you're dragging people to the ER to be called. So just keep that in mind that you want to reevaluate that. We have pockets of Florida that have already adopted I don't want to say liberal, but they allow the field to do more action. So they're starting to match the nation. And when you start to match the nation, your good and cerebral performance percentages go up because it's all relational, right? How many people you're taking to the hospital versus not. So it's a play on numbers, but the reality is, are we also stressing our crews out by working every single body, you know? So we've had a lot. I just want that to be brought in. Broward especially has this very less than 5% number of death in the field. But there's a lot of rural areas that are running up to 40%. So that number is important. And your relationship to ROSC, you're correct. A neurological outcome is our goal here. When you use the airplane example, I don't have the entire. Go over to the middle column. Look at the CPC lives saved by quantity. So when we bring up the airplane number and we say, how many did you save? 642 last year in Florida. That's 3 of those Airbus A320s. So think of it that way. So
yeah, baby. Yep.
You want to work your way up to 1 airplane full. Florida saves 3 airplanes full every year. That means a difference. That's normal life.
I think it's more than 3 airplanes because that's 150 per plane. So that's probably like 4.
If you're on Value
Jet
or United, how many they want to pack in?
Yeah. Hey, as long as it's not Spirit, my friend.
That's what I meant, Spirit. They got
I want to apologize to Dr. Pepe. That's amazing. Dr. Pepe, I apologize. We're going to be a little over today because I'm just going a little long in the tooth here. But this is a really important slide. And we are working on the pronouncement in the field issue. Brian Grinnell published a paper in Resuscitation showing that the more you stay on scene and you terminate on scene, the higher your neurointact survival goes. So staying on scene, keeping people on scene, terminating on scene actually does bode well for your outcome. So great. That was a great comment. All right. I'm going to bring in Charlie Coyle. Charlie is at Palm Beach County. He's my EMS chief, another amazing human being. Chief Coyle, you went an extra step and you do these crazy reports per battalion. Can you talk to us about this? This is the December report in Battalion 2. Talk to us about what you do as an addition to CARES.
Yeah, so thank you, Dr. Antevy, and kudos to Chief Moran. I mean, obviously, they built a phenomenal system down there, and I know Chief DiBernardo and Chief Dr. Antevy look at the numbers all the time. Those are excellent numbers. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is once you get in your CARES reports and you start getting them, don't be upset if they don't look like that. Just use it as an opportunity because I know Chief Moran and his team have been working for quite a while. So congratulations and kudos to you. This report that we created, I actually run 2 reports every month. And basically all this is a crystal report. And essentially, if you're trying to figure out what crystal means, because I didn't know, I say it confidently, but I had no idea what crystal report means. But essentially, it's just a data mining tool. So we use a data mining tool to grab from our EPCR, which is Metro PCR. And then we build the crystal report to grab from CARES, and we create a monthly report. So what you're looking at here is we break it down per battalion. This is one report, and then this goes to my crew. So this just tells them the crew for the month, what they ran. It goes by shift. It goes by patient age. It looks at the hospital, and then it talks about presumed cardiac arrest and what the initial rhythm was. And then it gives each battalion a breakdown at the end of the month to tell them how many cardiac arrests they had and how many ROS cases they have. But like was stated earlier, the money shot is the CPC 1 or 2. So we run another report, and the next report that we run, that we send out, we keep it internal before we send it to the crews. It's broken down by hospital, and it'll tell me, it compares these calls, these incidents to the hospital and what the hospital did. I would love to have those additional boxes filled out by the hospital, because then I would actually see if the hospital took the patient to angiocath and did the patient get a stent. We don't see that right now, but the second report we run allows me to see which hospital did the best for the month. And then second of all, it allows me to see which hospital did not complete their CARES data, which Chief DiBernardo is amazing to get everybody signed on in the state of Florida. But if you're not holding them accountable, your numbers will suffer because of it. Fortunately, unfortunately, I work in a very big agency. I transport to 20 hospitals. We run roughly 700 and something cardiac arrests per year. If I didn't automate it somehow, some way, I wouldn't know. So the monthly report lets me know to get on the hospital. We reach out to the hospital. They fill it out pretty quickly, and it gives me the opportunity to do feedback, and then we do our resuscitation awards off of that. So is there anything else you wanted me to cover with this report, Dr. Antevy?
No, I just wanted to, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, you basically, you did the work and now you're holding people accountable and it gives the feedback to the crews about their own cases. And then you're telling them about how their patients are doing. And then when the patients come back to life, you actually have ceremonies and you give the bars, same thing is done in other agencies. But it's that full circle of cardiac arrest care that really matters here. So kudos Chief Coyle, to you and your entire team. It's really incredible what you're doing as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Chief Moran, we have done a lot of work. You've done a lot of work. I'm going to have you just go through real quick about because obviously the stats are the stats, but we have some incredible people on the ground, our frontline folks doing the work. So really quickly, if you want to talk about what we do, and then the follow through after every single case.
Absolutely, and I'll try to keep it as quick as I can. So part of the response to cardiac arrest has to be an organized, rehearsed process. So thank you again to Chief Coyle for the kind words earlier, but also for the pit crew template that we literally stole from them and put our logo over it, and then manipulated some of the boxes a little bit and the responsibilities. Because again, you've seen one EMS system, you've seen one, got to make it work for your department. Some of our rescue trucks are 2 personnel, so we have to be a little bit flexible with the responsibilities. So this is basically the way that we laid out our template. Again, the numbers are based on patient priority. So 1 is the person doing the assessment, starting compressions. If they're in a shockable rhythm, second most important thing is to defibrillate them out. Third most is managing their airway. Fourth most is getting our medications on board. Fifth and sixth is kind of supportive positions, applying mechanical CPR, talking to the family, maintaining scene control, running CPR assist. These are all those functions. And then below the numbers at the bottom of our pit crew is the actual responsibilities just written out. That way everybody's on the same page for what they need to do when they get to the cardiac arrest. There's minimal but effective communication occurring on the scene. And it's a very organized.
Perfect. Okay, and I have a quick video here of how we practice. I'm sure a lot of people are doing this, but you got to make sure you practice like you play. And etc. Chief, you want to continue here? Yep.
So after the cardiac arrest has occurred, we're doing our post-arrest review. Again, measured and improved. Let's look at the code stat data. We get the 911 audio to see if there's any opportunity for TCPR. We look at the code stat. So here's an example of one from a real patient that we responded to. We look at every compression. We look at our compression rate, our fraction. We look at our pauses for defibrillation. We look at our mechanical CPR transition time. How long were we off the chest for? We look at our protocol, was everything adhered to with a emphasis on BLS care? And then we get that feedback sent to the crew as quickly as possible. And again, we learned all this from Seattle, from Resuscitation Academy, from Dr. Antevy, from amazing people like Tom Boothele from South Carolina. We've produced these reports, and I can tell you this to me is about measuring and improving, but also holding our people accountable for the training and education that we put out there. So a lot of departments will say, yes, we do pit crew CPR. Yes, we do high performance CPR, but without this data, it's an opinion. Let's look at our data to actually hold our personnel accountable for it and then give them praise every chance you get. Make sure CQI is done in a positive format where this is opportunities, it's not discipline. This is how can we give the best care possible to our patients. So here's our first defibrillation. How long were we off the chest for before shock, after shock, what our compression rates were being performed, and when those rhythm checks were occurring. So if you look, it's very regularly, about every 2 minutes, following our protocols and using CPR assist to guide those treatments. You'll see again the compression rates switch to 80, which is normal. That's our mechanical CPR application that occurred at 10 minutes, which is our department's goal at 10 minutes of manual compressions to switch over to a mechanical device. And then at the end of that, we send an email from us to the crew. And again, the big point that we stress with our CQI efforts is we were not on the call. We are going to critique the data, not your call. And then what we expect our personnel to do is to look at that critique of the data and then internally discuss with the crew that responded that day, is there any opportunity for improvement based on this data? So I type up the email that kind of summarizes everything that we just covered, along with some key points, key things to look at. And if there are a lot of opportunities, which again, rarely does happen, but when it does, it's just a training opportunity. So I'll still send this email, but then I'll also bring the crew in. I connect my computer to the TV. We review the code stat together. You can even play the whole code real time if you needed to. And then you look at the key opportunities there. And then we go downstairs to our training room and we actually practice a mega code to kind of just make sure that we're all on the same page of what should happen in the future.
I love these emails, by the way, and they blind copy me on them, so there's no stress, which I appreciate. But this is non-punitive, like Dan said, and we have Chief Mayor now who is in that seat, and his emails are just also incredible. So if you want
Amazing.
some advice on how to write a great email, what to put in the email, please hit us up, and we'll let you know. And then Dan, let's talk about this real quick too.
Yep. So again, Florida, very easy to get a hold of these records for public retention and our laws. So we make sure that we put the statute 41.425, which pretty much says all the discussion as part of our CQI under Dr. Antevy's umbrella that we are exempt from public record disclosure. So basically, if anybody requested these emails, they would get them, but it would be blank for the entire body of the email. It'd pretty much be a worthless email. It would just show me sending the email, who it went to, and then the bottom disclosure that we have here.
So I would recommend putting this, if you're from Florida or whatever state you are, put the statute at the bottom of these emails so there's zero question asked, and I would recommend that. So now real quickly, we're going to go through a quick picture show, and I want to start with Chief Coyle with Palm Beach County Fire. I know these are two incredible saves. You want to just mention a couple things here, if you can?
Yeah, so these are, the kids, fortunately enough, we don't run enough kids, but I can tell you there's no sweeter feeling than looking at a cardiac arrest case of a 2-year-old, 1-year-old, 3-year-old, and seeing that the crews got back ROSC, right? That's my first indicator that something might have went okay, that they got ROSC back. And sometimes, it doesn't turn out well, but they stayed on scene. They did all the things Dr. Antevy's been, on this journey for the past 10 years, telling people to stay, do the drill, do good compressions, use the metronome, give a first dose of epi. So these two particular cases, they both, actually both of them were drownings, and the crew stayed on scene both times. We just had another one here recently that had a good outcome. And this does get lumped into that CARES database. But when you start looking at percentages, and I tell you I had 80 survivors, and then I tell you I have 1 child, it's amazing how people forget about the other 79 patients immediately. So I know all of us has been in that situation. These are two of the kids that have survived in Palm Beach County over the past couple of years. And I can tell you there's no greater bit of gratitude to get it real time, and then to be able to know what to review with the crew, and then also be able to follow up with the team that ran the call, and Dr. Antevy's an expert at that. So again, without the data, you wouldn't get the notification. And what you're going to find is when you talk to your crews, number one, they just want to be told they did a good job. And number two, whether it was good or bad, when you get the data at your fingertips, it allows you to talk to them and see what's on their mind. And sometimes there's nothing on their mind, or sometimes that conversation leads to a greater conversation, which leads to a follow-up conversation. So I can tell you that it all starts with the data and the notifications, and then the rest is sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but I can tell you it's all needed.
Great. And you do an amazing job of it, and the whole team. So thank you so much, Chief. Chief Moran, you want to, I'll just do a quick slideshow, but you want to just talk through as I peruse through these?
So again, getting the feedback to the crew as quick as possible is key. And then if the patient's in the hospital and they're recovering and they want to meet the personnel who responded, we make that reunion happen. This gentleman was 21 years old when a cardiac arrest on a roof, and he was breathing by the time we got him into the basket and going down on the platform to the rescue truck. So just again, stay on scene. Again, multiple reunion pictures. I love the data. I love the numbers. Chief DiBernardo is amazing, all the work that he's done, and you, Dr. Antevy. But these hugs mean more than anything that I can ever say for numbers. I mean, meeting with these people, having the station reunions, the crews talking about the pit crew poster that we designed. I mean, it's so powerful, and it's by far my favorite phone call to make when I reunite with that survivor and I plan the station reunion, and then I see my crew hugging onto the patient that they last saw in cardiac arrest that they were doing compressions on. I mean, it is by far the best feeling in the world.
Yeah. And here's Gary. He's our first ECMO save, ECPR, thanks to Memorial Hospital, Memorial West. Actually, this was our first ECMO save, and that was really incredible stuff. This guy was, he's not even from here. He was going from the Keys up north, and he stopped at the Costco in Davie, and we had it all on video. And he's from what, Missouri, I think, Dan?
Michigan.
Michigan. And he stopped in, and so these are young people. This is incredible stuff. I think this was a football player, I believe. Ex-football player. This is a guy, his family came to the station. He was still in rehab, so we had him on FaceTime. I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, and then I want to give a kudos to Chief Downey, Chief Gonzalez, Chief Moran, and my entire team at Davie. We got a 2020 Heart Safe Community Award, which is an international award. And then I want to show, so I actually changed these numbers to reflect the most recent numbers. And then these are the Davie Fire Rescue numbers from 2023. So admitted to hospital, you can see. And then our numbers this year, our neuro intact survival is 14%. So listen, we had a great year. We don't have great years every year, so we're not pretending that we're like, hey, look at us. But we're just proud of what we've done, and we really want to help anybody and everybody get to there. Here's our contact information. The slide deck is all here on this QR code, but I want to bring in a few people. So Dr. Shepke. So Ken has been a mentor to me and many others. He's the Deputy Secretary of Health for the state of Florida. Huge proponent of everything we're doing. Ken, you want to make a couple of comments? Is he still on? See, Shepke. Maybe he was on before. Okay. Let's see here. All right, so I'm gonna have our guests just give us a couple of last words before we move over to the other webinar. So Chief DiBernardo, let me start with you. Give us a couple of final comments, and then I have your email here. Is that the best way for people to reach out and get their username and password or that money shot spreadsheet?
We have, I want to reiterate, we have amended our education to include telephone CPR as a part of our Resuscitate Florida program. 5 pilot agencies, like you mentioned, are scared when they first see it at 5 minutes. After they go through the CPR Life Links class that you're familiar with, it's federal curriculum, very easily done in 45 minutes. We now have 5 agencies that are performing to the high performance level American Heart Association, which is hands to chest in 120 seconds from receipt of the call. So Dan and I have incorporated that in the class. We will come out to your agency for free, or we will provide train the trainer for free. The next one will be in the Keys, and then one following that will be at First There, First Care, and you will get the actual CPR Life Links modified for Florida standard. So we're having great results. There's 21 million people in Florida. That's a lot of people to train in CPR. There's 7,200 dispatchers. We can get to them. We can get to the 7,200 dispatchers to teach telephone CPR. So let's put a lot of pressure on dispatch. When bystanders help, all these results go up exponentially. And then
Awesome.
lastly, it's not just you have regional representatives now throughout Florida. Contact me for cares, but any one of the regional reps know how to pull that report for your agency.
Okay, excellent. I really would ask everyone to get that report today. Okay, please. Let's move over to Chief Coyle. Final words, my friend.
As always, Dr. Antevy, thank you for including me in Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, but thank you for another excellent webinar. And what can I say? If you look at cardiac arrest, the patient's clinically dead when we get there, or in the back of our truck. In our care, the patient is dead. To be able to bring that patient back to life and reunite them with their family, there's no better feeling. But as EMS leaders, we have an obligation to look at the data. We have an obligation. If I pulled everyone's protocol up right now, I guarantee you they all look different. If I looked at a hospital procedure at each one of the hospitals we transport, they all do something different. And I know all these things are being accomplished over time with resuscitation centers, et cetera, but there's no time that's better than now to start looking at your data, obtaining your data, and comparing it with your neighbors and figure out how do you make your system better. We all have one common goal, and that's to protect the community. And it's impossible to do that effectively without the data. So I'm super thankful to Chief DiBernardo for all of his hard work and forcing people to get involved in the program. And I'm definitely looking forward to the future. And maybe we can get another plane full of people back to the community where they belong. So thank you so much.
Well said. Thank you so much, Chief. Chief Moran.
Really, just for everybody on, it takes a lot of work, and I am so incredibly blessed to have 2 of the best chiefs in the world as my bosses. Chief Gonzalez and Chief Downey are amazing human beings, but they also care about this program so much and support everything that we do. Dr. Antevy, again, blessed to have you, 2015, bring all this information into our department and trying to get more survivors from cardiac arrest. Chief Debo, your work with the Resuscitation Academy and Resuscitate Florida, it's an honor to be a part of. And we're so lucky to have Dr. Roach and Chief Clark working with our TCPR. I mean, literally all 10 steps that the Resuscitation Academy teaches to improve survival. We have people, we have heroes, we have champions in each of those elements that are really pushing for creating more survivors from cardiac arrest. So again, thank you so much for including me on here. It's an honor, and I look forward to learning from everybody on the call with any best practices they'd like to share with us as well. So thank you.
Well said, Dan. And I'm going to finish where we started, and I'm going to bring you some good news here. So Chief Downey, who's the one who got me into EMS, she said yes to this imbecile of a guy who knew nothing about EMS back in 2010. So I love her to death. Unfortunately, she's retiring, and she's retiring on February 29th. And look who's going to be sitting in the seat next is Chief George Gonzalez, who's done so many great things. So to Chief Downey, Chief Gonzalez, in honor of your father, Juan, you've done incredible things. I'm very indebted to you. This is what it's all about. This is our why. So if we can help in any way, and if I can go back to this other slide where I said by the end of today, number one, we can help you get your information. We will help you on number two. And I've already given you the information for everyone in number three, and everyone has my phone number too. So let's go do this. Let's save people in our community. And thank you guys. Let's open it up. I know that we're 20 minutes over, but does anyone in the crowd there's some really smart people listening here, and I would love to get any input, any thoughts before we move over to Dr. Pepe's webinar. Somebody want to jump in?
Hey, Peter, it's Brett. Just have a real
Brett.
quick question. Hey, yeah, awesome presentation, and it's just great to see what you guys are doing down there, and motivates us in other parts of the country to keep pushing forward. But I do have a quick question. After the Damar Hamlin incident, have you seen an increase in Florida of bystander CPR participation since that event? You know, I know there was a lot of fanfare. People were really motivated. It just seemed like it was like, okay, we'll get a couple people, and will it sustain, itself? And it doesn't seem like that is the case.
Maybe Tom can answer that one. I know that the AED sales have gone through the roof from the people who sell AEDs, as they told me. But Tom, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm closely monitoring by CPR across the month, and to see it rise. I think our largest rise is the adoption of telephone CPR is mandated as of last July. So it kind of be blurred in the same situation. So to say one is from the football situation or one is from our new law kicking in, right now I'm contributing it to the law. But outside of that, we are having a lot of conversations with all the athletic fields going to CPR and mandating AEDs. So there is a lot of activity. Whether I could attribute it to that case on bystander CPR, I don't know if I can yet. But we can look at all of the cardiac arrests on athletic fields today. That I can run that report in our biospatial. I can look at all athletic fields, school grounds, and I can tell you what the bystander rate is. I'm sure Dr. Antevy is going to expect that one from me by the end of the day. So I'll run that one, and I'll tell you what bystander CPR rate was last year versus this year on anything that has to do with the school.
We actually had a save. Yeah, we actually have a save of an 18-year-old the other day in Palm Beach County. We got him shocked 55 seconds after arrival. He walked out the hospital the next day. So Brett, I think that the biggest problem, in my opinion, is that people don't know how to recognize the arrest. And then a lot of people, even if their own spouse, what have you, for some reason, they're not getting engaged. So I do think that telephone CPR is really the first step to take to get more bystander CPR going. We've noticed a big difference in our outcomes because of the telephone CPR. People like Jim Roach and many others who have done that, in our dispatch centers. Great question.
Appreciate it.
Let's see. Dr. Fitzpatrick, Desmond, Des, you have a lot going on in your agencies up in the middle of the state. You there? You want to make some comments?
Yeah, I just want to empower everybody to utilize this as a tool for crew buy-in and agency buy-in. We have been amazingly surprised at how much the gauntlet being dropped by showing them their data. It has them want to work on it, create training. It goes from the crew level throughout the whole agency. And we've seen some tremendous outcomes and improvements for a few of our agencies as we use this. So get the data, utilize it. The crews want to know about it, and the agencies want to know about it.
Excellent. Well said. And then the last person I want to bring on, unless other people want to come on, is someone who I'm a little jealous of because his numbers are slightly better than ours. So Jonathan Applebaum, South Metro, which is in Denver. Dr. Applebaum, thanks for you join us all the time. Thanks for joining us again today. Talk to us about your numbers, because your numbers are just super.
So far, our numbers have been, for the last year, have just been amazing. And we've seen this consistent improvement over the previous 2 years. And then last year, we made a big jump. And so far, it really seems to be in part the addition of the metronome and the Antevy system, in addition to high performance CPR and all of that. One thing as we're looking at this, and I'm just trying to learn as much as I can from everybody on this, because there's so many really smart people here. Like, how can we do a better job, both in terms of culling our data, and make sure that we've got accurate information to make correct decisions moving forward. One thing which I was just looking at that in terms of the number of cases that get called when we see cardiac standstill after 20, 30 minutes on ultrasound, we don't transport them usually. So we're actually about 10% higher than the national average. So we're trying to still drill down on this and do the best job that we can, but also making sure as much as possible that we've got the accurate information to make the right call. And I so appreciate yourself being incredibly generous with your time and expertise, and everybody there. And Chief Coyle, I know my EMS chief wants to pick your brain. And as we keep trying to move forward and make it better for everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. I really appreciate that. All right, any last comments? JR from Chesapeake. Chief Reynolds, thanks for joining us. Do you have any comments? I know you guys are a high-performing system as well. Any thoughts on the CARES registry and the data and so forth?
No, hey, Dr. Antevy. No, I definitely appreciate the opportunity. We use CARES also. We take that CARES data, we have to print it out, and then we compare this. We send it out to the whole department. This way they can see our numbers, and we're very transparent, especially when we're looking at the PEA and asystole. I do have one question. I had to keep getting pulled out of this presentation. Is there a way to get a copy or the recording of this?
Yeah, it'll be on YouTube later today, and then you'll have access to the PowerPoint. I gave you a QR code. Take the slides, put your name on it, R&D it, and then, but more importantly, if you need to talk to anyone on the call, or I'm not talking about you, Chief. You have we speak all the time, but I'm saying if anyone needs any help, we're really seriously here to help, and take all of our stuff, all of our PowerPoints, all of our information, all of our trainings, which we basically stole from other people. So, all right. So I think we'll end it there. Thank you guys for joining us. There's a link that I put in the chat, that Dr. Pepe's webinar, which I'm going to pop over to as soon as everyone either leaves this one or crosses over. Thank you guys so much for joining, and great to see everybody again.